Do you wait for everything to be perfect and lined up straight before you make a choice? How hard are you trying to get everything in your life right? What if jumping in and getting messy is one of the ways to find out what works for you? Discover how being willing to mess up can create the phenomenal life you truly desire. Get ready to quit judging and start embracing all of your messy adventures. Now, here's your host, self-declared messy living expert, Petrina Fava.
Hey, hello. Welcome to Messy Adventures in Living. I'm your host, Petrina Fava. Thanks for being here. I'm glad you clicked play. I'm glad you dialed the number. I'm glad you came in the chat room, whatever you're doing. Thank you. So where did you land, Messy Adventures in Living? This is a show where you get invited to something different, something you may have never considered before, something somebody may not have ever told you before. Endless possibilities and endless choices and questions, and you get invited to get messy and choose, even if you don't know where that choice is going to take you, and even if that choice might not be perfect. That's what you get invited to on Messy Adventures in Living. Choosing, and having an adventure along the way. So I'm Petrina. I am me. And here's how I play. I am a mom of 3 kids. They are 12 and a half and almost 10 very soon, and 6. And they're cool. And I like being a mom. It's pretty awesome. My kids are always inspiring me to choose something greater and showing me all the places where I have a ton of judgments about me and the world, and showing me all the places where I limit myself, and they're an amazing source of inspiration, and I'm so grateful for them. I am also a pediatric nurse in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I have been for about 19 years, and through those years I have met an enormous amount of families and kids who are incredibly inspiring and who show me every day that happiness is a choice and that you can actually choose happiness no matter what your circumstances are. I am reminded of that every single day when I go into that place, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm also an Access Consciousness, bars, and body process facilitator. Access Consciousness is a modality, you can call it, that offers some tools for change. It offers you some tools to change whatever is not working for you in your life, and also offers you some tools to create something greater for yourself. So it's not just something for people who think their life sucks. It's also, if you are happy already with your life, it offers you some tools to create something greater, because greater is always possible. So that's just a little bit about me. I also, by the way, make my own body products. It's called Naturally Happy Body. If you are interested in checking it out, you can find it on my website, petrinafava.com or naturallyhappybody.com. Great for people who have sensitive skin or not sensitive skin, babies, pregnant women. Everything that I put in my products is 100% natural. I use great high-quality essential oils and only natural ingredients. I love them. My family loves them. And they're on naturallyhappybody.com for you to check out if you like. Okay, enough. I would like to get started with this topic. So, what are we talking about today on Messy Adventures in Living? So our show today is called Choice Does Not Equal Fault. Well, you chose it, so it's your own fault. Have you ever heard that before? Have you ever thought it before? Are you feeling blamed? Are you blaming yourself? Does the concept of everything is just a choice have you feeling like the mess you're in is your own fault, since you chose it, right? Where did you learn to equate choice with fault? And when did the lightness of choice become heavy with responsibility? Acknowledging choice is very different than blame. How many insidious judgments does it take to turn choice into fault? It reminds me of how many light bulbs does it take, in that statement? How many insidious judgments does it take to turn choice into fault, truly? If you eliminated blame, would you be more willing to choose right? If you eliminated blame, would you be more willing to just choose? So, if you've listened to Messy Adventures in Living before, you know that I talk a lot about choice. In fact, my radio show last week, that would be January the 2nd, 2017, the first choice of the first show of this year, the first choice of this year, was about what will your choices create this year. So we talk a lot about choice here, and the reason for that is because I am excited about the fact that everything is up for choosing. But I wasn't always, right? I haven't always been at all. So when I was first introduced to this concept of everything is just a choice, in case you've never heard this before, in case you have not heard the idea that absolutely everything in your life can be a choice, I was initially kind of hearing about this concept about 7 years ago when I started to learn about energy work and manifesting, and I was reading Abraham Hicks and The Secret and all of this. So this thing about choice started to swirl around in my awareness. And there was something about it that was kind of rubbing me the wrong way. And I wasn't exactly sure what it was. But I know now that it was a bit of this sense of blame, or like the sense of if everything is my choice, then if I look at everything that's happened to me in my life, then that means that everything is my fault. Ew, that sucked. I was like, what the heck is this? This is supposed to be happy-go-lucky stuff. Why am I feeling like shit? Because they're telling me that everything is my choice. So what the hell? I created all this crappy stuff in my life. Why would I do that? And then, to top it all off, right after I became a Reiki practitioner and was about to start my course in manifesting, I had a miscarriage at 9 weeks pregnant. Great. This is my fault too now. This is my choice. I chose this. What the hell? What is this bullshit that I'm learning? I was like, I don't even want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about these people. I do not subscribe to this anymore. I'm canceling my subscription to choice. No. Sorry. This happened to me. I didn't choose it. And so I was really in this position of resistance and pushing away this idea of choice because I felt blamed. I felt that my choice meant my fault, right? So I wholeheartedly rejected this concept for a while. And then when that kind of blew over, I started to look at it again, and I started to not look at it again. That's actually not correct. When I started to really acknowledge what I knew, I actually really knew that that everything is a choice. I knew that. So, what has this been for you? What comes up for you when we talk about this? How did you feel, or how do you feel? Was there anything around this concept of fault and choice being the same for you when you started to examine the possibility that your life is created by you? You choose what shows up in your life. I am canceling my prescription to choice. So where are all the places in our lives that we learn that choice equals fault? Well, it's not really hard. You don't have to really think hard. You don't have to look hard to find that, right? Early on in our lives, we learn about fault. You might be fighting with your brother or your sister, or you knock over the vase and your parents tell you that it's your fault, right? What the heck is fault, and what's choice, and what's the difference? Well, I did a thing that I like to do. I went to etymology online. It's a dictionary that talks about the original meaning of words. And so I like to talk about words and the energy of words more than the meaning and definition of words, because oftentimes the words we use have an energy underneath them or to them more than the meaning. We focus on meaning, and we tend to kind of forget, dampen our awareness of the energy of the word. So it's always fun to look and see what the original intention or the original meaning, or how the word was originally intended to be used, how that is either very different than how we use it today, or similar but has a different energy. Anyways, if you're a word nerd like me, you can check out online etymology dictionary. So this is what I did. I went there and I looked up the word fault. And I found this: fault, to be deficient. A deficiency. First thing I saw was to be deficient. Okay, that's not really very fun. Deficiency, an opening, a gap, a failure, a blemish, a lack. Deficiency, a shortcoming, a falling. Deceptive, fiend, spurious, which I actually have no idea what that word means, to deceive or disappoint. Faulty, containing faults, errors, or deficits. Blame, culpability, and guilt. To falter, to be burdened, to hesitate, to be troubled, to stammer. So, what does your body feel like after I just read all those words? Okay, so there's this tool. It's called the Light and Heavy tool, and it's a tool that's offered by Access. And the way this tool works is that anything that's true for you will make you feel light, and anything that's not true for you will make you feel heavy. So when we read this, fault, to be deficient, a deficiency, a gap, a failure, a lack, a shortcoming, deceptive, containing errors or deficits, blame, culpability, guilt. What's that like for you in your body? Is it light? Is it expansive? Or is it heavy? And if it's heavy for you, then would you be willing to acknowledge that all of that is an intense lie for you? So, choice on the other hand, right? So if you think about fault and the heaviness of blame and failure and lack and blemish, choice, actually, when I checked it out on etymology online, I found an action of selecting. So fault is a deficiency, and choice is an action of selecting, according to etymology online. So forget about meaning and tap into the energy of those two things. To be deficient, a deficiency, a failure, fault. Choice, an action of selecting. Also, it said to taste or relish. To taste or relish. Choice, to taste or relish. Fault, blame, culpability, guilt. Different, right? So, who cares? Right? You might be thinking, okay, so what? Like, who cares? What's the difference? Well, the difference is that if you would be willing to embrace choice, and if you would be willing to be excited about choice, how much more would you be willing to create your life? If, on the other hand, you associate choice with fault, how much more likely are you to resign yourself to the stars? You know? Have you ever heard the expression, the fault is in the stars, or the fault is in our stars, or something like that? You know, if you associate fault and choice, are you more willing to create your life? Would you be more willing to create your life? Like, if you are interested in creating your life, but you subscribe to fault, will you ever really choose? So I was sitting in church. I love church. So I was sitting in church the other day. So I have to be honest with you. I grew up Catholic, and I somewhere along the way kind of, started not really going to church very much because I became irritated by what I was hearing. And I know now that a lot of that was my awareness of some of the lies that just some of what was just not true for me, just really not true for me. Anyways, my kids go to Catholic school though, so sometimes I need to take them to church. So I was in church the other day, and we were reciting a prayer, and the line in the prayer is, through my fault, through my fault, through my most grievous fault. It's like, anyways, whatever, I won't try to name it. So, and also during this reciting of this line, through my fault, through my fault, through my most grievous fault, the action of hitting your chest with your fist is encouraged, okay? So the priest is standing up, his fist is pounding on his chest, through my fault, through my fault, through my most grievous fault. And so here I am very aware of the contraction and the heaviness in my body when I hear this line. And so I'm sitting in church using this other amazing tool from Access called Interesting Point of View, where everything is just an interesting point of view, even everything in church. Because it's very easy for me to sit in church and resist and react to everything the priest is saying. So through my most grievous fault. So I was like, okay, what's the lie here? And what's the truth? Right? So I was like, what's the lie that I'm aware of? Okay, the lie of guilt, the lie of shaming, the lie of like self-flagellation, that's a lie. To me, that was the lie. And then I was like, but what's true here? Is there anything true here? What are we trying to do with this prayer? And the point of the prayer was to admit that something is your fault. And I was like, but what else is possible with that? Like, what else is there besides admitting your fault? And I was like, oh, choice. Acknowledging your choice. Right? It's like, I sinned through my own fault. This is the prayer. I sinned through my own fault, my most grievous fault. Could actually be, I just made a choice that didn't work. I can acknowledge that I made a choice that didn't work out. But if you go to church, nobody says it like that. Right? Nobody says, hey, I made a choice, and it didn't really turn out to be something that's creating something greater for me. So I'd like to choose something different. In church, it sounds like, I'm a sinner, it's my fault, please forgive me. Because it's my fault, my most grievous fault. So, everywhere you have bought your most grievous fault in any church or religion or cult that you ever have belonged to, will you destroy and create all that? Right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Wow. Just a little bit of energy on that one. So, what else? So, what else comes up for you around religion? So, religion is a lot about sinning and fault and placing blame. Blame, shame, guilt. Blame, shame, guilt. Blame, shame, guilt. What else is possible besides blame, shame, and guilt? Well, I'll tell you, it's choice. So, let's go take a break and come back and talk more about choice does not equal fault. And let's get rid of all the points of view we have and all the places that we have bought this as truth and see what else is possible. You're listening to Messy Adventures in Living on the Inspired Choices Network. We'll be back very soon.
Do you wait until all the traffic lights are green before you get in your car? Of course you don't. Are you waiting until you have everything perfect to begin living? Most of us have learned not to take any steps until we have all the information to make the right choice. What if the opposite is true? What if it's choice that creates awareness? Are you willing to make lots of messy choices so you can begin to see the possibilities that you didn't think existed? Listen for Messy Adventures in Living radio show with self-declared messy living expert Petrina Fava every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, and 8 Pacific on the InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. How much more expansive would your life be if you were willing to get messy with your choices?
What if there's nothing wrong with you? What if you're far greater than you've ever given yourself credit for? What if it's time to know the gift and the contribution you are to the world and to like yourself a lot more? Hi, my name is Dane here. 13 years ago, I started to truly ask questions. Actually, I started to be the question, and everything changed for me. Asking questions opens doors to infinite possibilities. And it's not about finding the answer. It's about being the question. Always. What I'm inviting you to step into is something that Einstein, Marie Curie, Newton, Da Vinci, Gandhi, Picasso, and Aristotle all knew to be true. What if no question is too big or too small? What if anything is possible for you? What if together we could create a kinder, gentler, happier world? Is now the time? Go to beingyouclass.com and sign up for a free video series, My Gift to You. beingyouclass.com. What if you, truly being you, are the gift and change this world requires? beingyouclass.com.
You're listening to Messy Adventures in Living with Petrina Fava. To participate in today's show, please call in the U.S. 815-880-8255. In Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also ask questions or comment by email by sending to Petrina at petrinafava.com. Now, here's Petrina with more Messy Adventures.
Hey, welcome back to Messy Adventures in Living. I'm your host, Petrina Fava. If you are just joining us, our call today is called Choice Does Not Equal Fault. And we've been talking about how perhaps you may have been feeling like if everything is just choice and everything is your choice, and that means that everything is your fault. I know that when I was first started to look at this idea, I started to it's really weird because it's not that I wasn't aware. I knew that I could create my life. I knew that everything was my choice. But when I started to hear about it in the world of, alternative healing or whatever, there was something about it that I knew was a lie. Or there was a lie that I was creating, or there was a lie that I had attached to it, actually, there. I think that's what it is. And that was this concept of fault, that if everything is my choice, that means everything that's happened to me is now my fault. So do you have any of this going on, or is there something else that's coming up for you around fault and choice? And how much is that screwing up your ability to make messy choices, right? Messy adventures in living. Make a choice, see what it creates. So what if it's your choice that creates an awareness, right? What if your choices create awareness of what to choose next, awareness of what it creates? We grow up learning that we have to have the answer. We have to have the awareness of what the choice is going to create before we choose it. And, what if that's not true? What if actually your choices are what create your life? What if your choices create awareness? What if you need to choose first in order to see what your choice creates? You do. And isn't that awesome? And isn't that exciting? Or is it for you? Is it frightening? Is it scary? Is it does it feel guilt? Does it feel loaded with guilt and responsibility there? That's the other one too, responsibility. So where do we do this in our lives? What areas of our lives do we do this a lot, right? Relationships, definitely. Family, yep. Those are the two big ones. Where else? Where else do you find yourself looking at fault or taking in fault? So, I wanted to talk about relationships because I found this thing on the internet, this picture, whatever meme. Oh, it was a quote from some guy named Walter Isaacson. And it goes like this, and this is a very common point of view in this reality, okay? If you can't keep him interested, it's your fault. So, if he cheats on you, it's your fault. You weren't sexy enough. You weren't thin enough. You weren't good enough in bed. If you can't keep him interested, that's your fault. So, okay, first of all, everything that brings up times Godzillion, will you destroy and create it all? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, pock, all night shorts, boys and beyonds. Oh, I forgot to mention the clearing statement. So, these words that I just said are something called the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement. It is a collection of words that actually does have an explanation, but we're not going to talk about it today on Messy Adventures in Living. If you would like to read about the detailed explanation, you can go to theclearingstatement.com. It has its own website. Basically what it is as we talk about something and a whole bunch of energy comes up around it, so in this case we're talking about fault and blame and shame, and a whole bunch of energy for you comes up around it, maybe something in your past, maybe something in some other lifetime, you can say the clearing statement and it gets at everywhere that it was created, everywhere that it's destroying your life, everything you've decided is right about that, everything you've decided is wrong about that, and a whole bunch of other things. You don't have to understand for it to work. You just need to be willing to just try and create it and say the clearing statement and it works. Or you don't have to. You can just listen. No worries. Okay, so What are we talking about? If your husband cheats on you, if your wife cheats on you, if you can't keep him or her interested, then it's your fault. So what does that look like in terms of choice? So when I had this miscarriage, which, by the way, this is an interesting phrase to have a miscarriage. So when I had a miscarriage, I was like, okay, but after I was initially extremely pissed off, I started to ask this question: what's right about this that I'm not getting? So I was looking at like why, which, by the way, why questions kind of just take you into a circle and don't really give you awareness. But if I was looking at for what reason would I choose this? For what reason would I choose this? And so I kept asking questions like this, like, what is it that this actually created for me in my life? And it actually I had to ask that question for a really long time before I really got to a place where I could see the gift in it. And now, many years later, I can see and I don't have an answer. Like, I don't have the answer of why I created that or why I chose that. But I have some sense. I have some awareness of the change that it created in my relationship with my husband, the change that it created for the coming birth of my son after that. It created a change. And the change is difficult for me to put into words because it's a lot of energy. And so, can I acknowledge that I created that? Yeah. Truly, absolutely. And I don't know exactly what that means. Like, you think, like, well, what does that mean? You created it. You made it happen. How do you make something happen? It's not, like, you need to not get in your head. So everywhere you're trying to get in your head to understand how you create something happening, will you destroy and create all that? Maybe. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, all night, choice, boys, and beyond. So, my sense is that I had some kind of communication with this being that was in my body for 9 weeks. And it may have sounded something like this if there was words. Hey, I require some being to come and be this for me for a couple weeks. Who wants to be that being? And this little being was like, hey, I'll do that. I got like 9 weeks to spare. I'll come hang out in your uterus for 9 weeks and then go and just like kind of create that for you. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do it. So of course this is not conscious, right? But I can acknowledge that there was a gift in it. And I think a lot of that is connected to choice. So like, would you be willing to see the gift in all of your choices rather than trying to attach it to fault or trying to keep yourself tied to the choice? So that's kind of what it is too. Like, fault and blame kind of keep you tied to the wrongness of your choice, right? So like, how often do we learn you better make the right choice, because if you don't, there's going to be consequences, and you might have to deal with these consequences for a really long time. So if choice is just the action of selecting, as we found in the Etymology Online Dictionary, if choice is just the action of selecting, and if choice is, to taste and relish, do you have to stick with yourself with that choice forever? If you're just tasting and relishing, do you have to stick yourself with that choice? If you believe in fault and you believe in responsibility, then how much are you sticking yourself with your choices? Do you get that? And what's the value of that? So that's the question too. So then now, what's the value of sticking yourself with your choices? Of like, what is the value of that? That's a really good question. What's the value of sticking yourself with your choices? Change? Not changing? Is it to ensure that you'll never change and everything that is will you destroy and uncreate it all? Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all night, choice, boys and beyond. Sure. Because if choice only lasts 10 seconds, and if choice is just the action of selecting, how much permanence, like energetically, how much do you sense permanence when you hear an action of selecting. Is there permanence there? The action of selecting. Tasting, relishing. There's not a lot of permanence, right? Energetically, there's not a lot of permanent energy attached to that. And I love that. And I love that I can really perceive that difference. There's no permanence. So, but if you think about fault, energetically, can you sense the permanence? Fault. And like, you know that a fault, like a fault in the earth, the gap, the crack in the earth, that sense of permanence too, like that sense of like a crack, a permanent blemish on your soul, a fault. If you make a mistake, it's a permanent blemish on your soul. You cannot make another choice because it's permanently on your soul. And everywhere you bought that bullshit, will you destroy and uncreate it, please? Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Choice is not permanent. Choice can last 10 seconds. It can last 3 seconds. It can last 5 seconds because you can choose again. And that doesn't mean you have to go around being irresponsible. And it doesn't mean that you just go around not considering other people and being rude and being inconsiderate and, it doesn't mean any of that. It just means that when you choose, you can always make another choice. You can acknowledge whether or not the choice works for you, and then you can make another choice. So what if you could go through life selecting, tasting, and relishing without the need for permanently blemishing your soul with fault? And if you keep asking yourself, what is the value of this? And be willing to get rid of that, how much greater could you create your life? So what else? What other points of view do we have about fault? So let's talk again about relationships, because I started to talk about this and then I kind of had a squirrel moment. So like, if you can't keep him interested or her interested, then it's your fault. So the reason that I started to talk about my miscarriage, here we go, is because sometimes something that shows up in your life is hard to see why you would choose something like that. And again, like, it's not really helpful to ask why questions because they kind of just put you into a spin. But you can ask instead, like, what's the gift here? What would be the gift in having your partner cheat on you? And the thing is that none of this is cognitive, right? You got to get out of your head. So, like, how you can ask questions about, like, what's right about this I'm not getting? How long have I actually been out of this relationship? How long has he actually been out of the relationship? And the other thing about relationships and this kind of thing is that there's a difference between disregarding your awareness and making something your fault. Do you know what I mean? So, like, in relationships is such a good example of this. Let me see, how can I articulate this exactly? I have the energy of it, and I just need to kind of stick it into some words for you guys tonight. So, here, I have something that I posted on Facebook. Okay, so here I found a quote that says, "It's not your fault for hurting me. It's mine for thinking that you wouldn't." So how much have you subscribed to this thing where it's like, if somebody hurts you, it's your fault for letting them? It's not their fault for hurting you. You let them. So, first of all, that's a bunch of hooey. And what truth is there? So how often do you disregard your awareness? And so how much, like, would you be willing to see that acknowledging your choice in something is very different than sticking yourself with blame? So, what if you could just make another choice without blaming yourself? So everywhere you're not acknowledging your awareness, and then when something shows up that you knew because you had the awareness, even though you ignored it, and you turn around and you blame yourself for it, when really you actually knew and you were just disregarding your awareness. Well, you just trying to create it all. Right, wrong, good, bad, POD, POC, all nine choices, boys and beyond. Do you get that? So, like, it's not your fault for hurting me. It's actually mine for thinking that you would never do that. Because I'm just so dumb to think that you would never hurt. It's not your fault. It's my fault because I'm so dumb. Okay, what the hell is that victim-ass bullshit? Would you be willing to acknowledge your awareness so that you can see something for what it is and then choose? And then even if you choose to stay, for example, in this case, in a relationship, at least you're acknowledging it as your choice. And you know you can always make a different choice. Right? Cool. Alrighty. I think it's time for a break. So let's take a break. You are listening to Messy Adventures in Living. I'm your host, Petrina Fava. Our topic for today is called Choice Does Not Equal Fault. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Do you wait until all the traffic lights are green before you get in your car? Of course you don't. Are you waiting until you have everything perfect to begin living? Most of us have learned not to take any steps until we have all the information to make the right choice. What if the opposite is true? What if it's choice that creates awareness? Are you willing to make lots of messy choices so you can begin to see the possibilities that you didn't think existed? Listen for Messy Adventures in Living radio show with self-declared messy living expert Petrina Fava every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, and 8 Pacific on the InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. How much more expansive would your life be if you were willing to get messy with your choices?
What if you really do change molecules by your interaction with them? What if the change you've been looking for is right before your eyes? What if the uncomfortableness that comes with difference could be fun? What if the closed-minded people of the world no longer determined our world? What if gratitude trumps judgment every time? What if your kindness healed the world? What if the earth is asking for your help? And what if you had the resources to give it? This is your invitation to step into something that Einstein, Marie Curie, Picasso, Da Vinci, Shakespeare, Aristotle all knew to be true. Hi, my name is Dane here. 13 years ago I started to truly ask questions. Actually, I started to be the question, and everything changed for me. What if there are no dumb questions? Or any question too large? What if you being you are the gift and the change this world requires? Is now the time? For more questions to create a change in your world, sign up for a free video series at beingyouclass.com. My gift to you, beingyouclass.com.
You're listening to Messy Adventures in Living with Petrina Fava. To participate in today's show, please call in the U.S. 815-880-8255. In Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also ask questions or comment by email by sending to Petrina at petrinafava.com. Now, here's Petrina with more Messy Adventures.
Hey guys, welcome back to Messy Adventures in Living. I'm your host, Petrina Fava. We're on the Inspired Choices Network, and this show today is called Choice Does Not Equal Fault. So, wondering if you guys have ever felt or have been feeling like, if everything is your choice, if your life is created by you, if you choose everything, if you have the power to choose everything in your life, then does that mean that everything you ever did or anything that ever happened is totally your fault? Is it possible that maybe you've been to a therapist? Like, how much therapy have you done that has suggested that all of your problems are your own fault? How many people have told you that, if you're poor, it's your fault? If you don't have a good job, it's your own fault. If you don't have a good education, it's your fault, because you're lazy and you didn't study. So have you equated choice with fault? And actually, how different are these two things? And what is the difference? So the energy of these two words are totally different. It's not just a word. It's, choice is really about, it's not about wrongness, whereas fault is all about wrongness, right? A deficiency, blame, shame, being burdened, to stammer, to be deceptive, shortcomings, failings. These are all things that are associated with fault. Choice is not that. Choice is an action of selecting. Just selecting. Tasting. Relishing. Tasting is great. Tasting is like, I'm going to taste it and then I'm going to see. Oh, I like it. I'm going to taste this and then I'm going to see. Oh, I don't like that one. Like, what if every choice you made could be like that? And maybe you think I'm like this dreamer and I should, get back to reality because, excuse me, but there are serious choices to be made here. No. Yes. And what if every choice could have that lightness? What if your choices didn't have to be burdened with responsibility? I actually looked up responsibility in etymology online because this is what I do. I'm a word nerd. Responsibility is answerable, a sense of obligation. Answerable. Responsibility, answerable. You need to answer. You need to have an answer for your choice. If you make a choice, you better have an answer for it. Right? What if you could taste even those choices that we all think we have learned or we think are the serious choices, right? Marriage, becoming pregnant, getting a job, going to university, getting a degree, what kind of school you're going to go to, which school you're going to go to. Well, you can't just select it the same way you select ice cream, Petrina, you might be thinking, because I'm going to spend $10,000 in my first year of university, and what if I decide I don't like it? I have to think carefully about it. I have to weigh all my options. I have to, find out happening everywhere. And it's not that this is wrong. Like, yes, absolutely, get information. Get information, and then make a choice, and be willing to choose again. See, this is the thing. We think choice is permanent. It's the permanence of choice that screws us up. If you choose to go to university and you choose a program and you're halfway through the semester and you think it sucks, you can't choose again. Is it going to be a comfortable choice? Is it going to cost you some extra money? Okay, sure. So? Who cares? Why is that significant? Why do we make this so significant? Well, if you chose the wrong program, it's your fault. Well, no, actually, it was just my selection. I was just tasting. Well, if you choose to have sex and you get pregnant, that's your fault. Actually, I was just kind of relishing in my choice. See, and so everything that comes up around that, all the energy, all the wrongness, everywhere you've thought that as wrong, everywhere you think that is just the most horrible thing, because now your choice impacts someone else, all the wrongness associated to that. Specifically, pregnancy. This keeps coming up. I was talking about it on my last show too. Like, if you make a choice, you have to stick with it because it's going to affect somebody else. That baby who came into the world did not choose that. And everywhere you bought that lie, right there, will you destroy and create it? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, all night, choice, boys, men. Hey, because guess what? If you have choice, so do other people. And where did you decide that your choices are the choices that affect everyone around you? Someone I know once told me that maybe I was a little bit high and mighty in thinking that all of my choices that I make affect my kids. And that maybe my kids actually make their own choices. So, like, everywhere you've decided that your choices are the choices, that everyone is at the effect of your choices. There we go. Everywhere you've decided that everyone else around you is at the effect of your choices, therefore you must make the most right choice. Because you are the all-powerful chooser who affects everyone. Will you please destroy and create all that? Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, or punk, all night, choice, poison, beyond. Because guess what? You're not the only one who lives in this universe. There are millions and billions of people here, and beings. And everyone has choice, not just you, right? So that's the cool thing about acknowledging choice, too, is that it's not just about you. If you can acknowledge that everything is just a choice for you, then you have to acknowledge that other people have choice, too. You can go around blaming your parents for what your life has been. But or you can acknowledge that they made some choices and that you made some choices that, guess what? You can choose again. You can choose to drop your past and make a different choice. You can choose to send your mom a nice little love note that says, thank you, I'm so grateful for you. Or you can choose to continue to hate her for the rest of your life. You can choose to not be around your brother or your sister if that works for you, and not feel guilty for it, and not feel like it's a fault of yours, and not feel like it's a sin. It's just a choice. And you don't have to be bound to that choice. This is the other thing too. There's no binding to choices. There's binding to fault, for sure. But there actually is no binding to choice. You don't have to be bound to your choice. It's a lie. Because you can choose again. Oh, but your choices are not without consequence, you might be thinking. So what is that? What is the idea of consequence that you've bought into that's not exactly true? What if instead of your choices have consequence, you can acknowledge that your choice creates your life? Right? So if you acknowledge that your choice creates, is that a very different energy than feeling the heaviness of the responsibility of my choice equals responsibility. What is that we just said? My choices have consequences. So what's lighter for you, right? My choices have consequences. Every choice I make has a consequence, and I need to be aware of those consequences. Or what if your choice just creates? And then you can choose again, and then you can choose again, and then you can choose again. There is no binding to choice. And if there is, it's a lie that you bought. There is truly no binding to choice because you can always choose another thing. You can choose something different. The choice might not be comfortable. The choice might not be perfect. The choice might not be ideal, but it doesn't matter because that's a lie too. Perfect and ideal are lies. Choose and see what it creates. Choose and see what it creates. Yes? Or maybe no? I don't know. So you're listening to Messy Adventures in Living. We are going to take a quick break. You're listening to Messy Adventures in Living on the Inspired Choices Network with myself, Petrina Fava. Today we're talking about choice does not equal fault. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back.
Do you wait until all the traffic lights are green before you get in your car? Of course you don't. Are you waiting until you have everything perfect to begin living? Most of us have learned not to take any steps until we have all the information to make the right choice. What if the opposite is true? What if it's choice that creates awareness? Are you willing to make lots of messy choices so you can begin to see the possibilities that you didn't think existed? Listen for Messy Adventures in Living radio show with self-declared messy living expert Petrina Fava every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, and 8 Pacific on the InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. How much more expansive would your life be if you were willing to get messy with your choices?
What would you say if I told you that you could change your life in only 1 hour and all while lying down relaxing? Thousands of people all over the world have. What am I talking about? It's called Access Consciousness, the bars. The bars is an energetic body process that contains 32 different points on your head that when run assist you in releasing decisions about any area of your life that you have made solid and as a result cannot change. The bars is the first class in Access Consciousness, a dynamic set of tools and information designed to transform any area of your life. When you have a bars session, the worst that can happen is you feel like you had a fantastic massage. The best thing that can happen is your whole life could change. Go to accessconsciousness.com today to find a facilitator to schedule a private session or to find a bars class in your area. Are you willing to give yourself an hour to change your life?
You're listening to Messy Adventures in Living with Petrina Fava. To participate in today's show, please call in the U.S. 815-880-8255. In Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also ask questions or comment by email by sending to Petrina at petrinafava.com. Now, here's Petrina with more Messy Adventures.
Hey, welcome back to Messy Adventures in Living. I'm your host, Petrina Fava. We're on the Inspired Choices Network talking all about choice does not equal fault. Did you know that? Did you know that choice doesn't equal fault? Oh my God, isn't that cool? If it's your choice, it doesn't mean it's your fault. What the hell is the difference, you might be asking? Lots. Choice is not permanent. Fault is permanent. Choice is just selecting every 10 seconds. And you might think that's way too easy. And you might think I'm crazy and really naive for thinking that. But you know what? You always have a choice. Choice does not have to last more than 10 seconds. If you choose something and it doesn't work out, it doesn't create something amazing in your life or creates havoc, you can choose something else. There's always, always, always another choice. Always. Always. And you don't have to be bound by guilt or fault or anything else like that. Where did we learn this? Where did we buy the lie of fault? I was talking in the beginning about being in church and reciting this prayer that to which the words are that I have sinned through my own fault. My fault, my most grievous fault. And in the reciting of this prayer, there's actually an action where you close your hand into a fist and like beat your chest through my fault, my most grievous fault. And I was just doing it in the beginning, actually, like I was actually doing it right now when I was saying it at the beginning of the show. And it made me realize actually how much this impacts our bodies. How much are we impacting our bodies with our faults? Like the self-flagellation. So like, I don't know, any lifetimes you ever believed in like self-flagellation and like whipping yourself until you bled to remind yourself of all your wrongdoings so that you'll be better in the next life? Would you please destroy and not create all that? Blech. Right, wrong, good, bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. You don't have to remember your mistakes in order to change them. You just have to choose something different. It's really easy, guys. You don't have to remember your mistakes in order to change them. That's a lie. That's a lie. You don't have to constantly remind yourself of things being your fault and attaching and binding. You don't need to do that. It's bullshit. You can let go of all of that and have the awareness of what your choices create and then choose something else. It doesn't have to be hard. And it doesn't have to be painful. And you don't have to hurt yourself. And you don't have to punish yourself for sinning. Don't have to punish yourself for your choices. Stop it. Punishing yourself is not creating anything for you. Well, except crap and maybe a really big headache, and if you like that, go for it. But I personally would prefer ease and actually joy and excitement and creating and out-creating myself. That's what I would like. So, what are we going to do next week? Well, actually, you know what I think we're going to do next week? Next week, we are going to talk about setting unreasonable goals. I actually just read something today. I love the internet, man. It is an amazing source of interesting point of views that I can always talk about on my radio. I read something that said, we're talking about New Year's resolutions and like how so often we set goals that are high in emotion and then as it fizzes out, we give up. So set reasonable goals. Next week, we're going to talk about how to set unreasonable goals because that's way more fun, isn't it? So thank you for being here on Messy Adventures in Living. Remember that your choice is not permanent. You can choose every 10 seconds and get rid of fault and get rid of blame and choose to create the amazing life you know is possible. Until next week, goodbye.
Thanks for playing with us on Messy Adventures in Living. Petrina Fava will return next Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain, and 8 a.m. Pacific on Inspired Choices Network. We'd love to have you join us again. Until next time, have fun creating your phenomenal life, mess and all.